Hello, everybody. Welcome to the August edition of Eureka Whiskey Club. As always, I am your host, Trevor Tyler, with Eureka, and excited to be joined by not one, but two fine gentlemen this evening. Guys, I think you may be the first guests we've had that are beardless in like 4 or 5 months. We've had this ongoing joke of everyone has a beard. So congratulations on being the first two handsome, clean-shaven gentlemen on this call. But I'll get in with introducing our guests here in a minute. As always, thank you for joining live from YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're watching. And feel free to start asking questions, which we'll include in our Q&A section at the end. But I'll talk a little bit more about the prizes we have to give out tonight. But I'd love for our two guests to introduce themselves. So, Mike, we'll start with you, and then we'll let Greg go if that's cool.
Yep, that's awesome. So, good evening, everyone. So, my name is Mike Reed. I serve as the West Region Manager for Old Elk Distillery. I'm based out of Southern California, just north of LA. And I've been with Old Elk for about 5 years, basically since inception of brand, and I've been lucky to get to know Greg and help build the brand over the last 5 years, and excited to talk to you and really shows about Greg today. I'm just here for support and to show you what someone without a beard looks like. So thank you.
So I'm Greg Metz. I'm the master distiller for Old Elk Distilleries. I'm actually in my 45th year in the business. I spent 38 years of my career at the Lawrenceburg, Indiana distillery, which is now known as MGP. I went through 4 ownership changes, had quite a bit of training under Seagram's, which gave me the best training in the world relative to becoming a master distiller. I met Old Elk in 2010 when they decided they wanted to get into the business, and actually joined them full-time 5 years and about 4 months ago. So, and again, like Mike said, I joined them to help them build their brand from the ground up, and it's been extremely exciting from day one and continues to be. So, yeah.
It's awesome. So welcome, gentlemen. We're really happy to be featuring Old Elk as our featured whiskey this month, and we did a really cool blend, micro blend with you guys by selecting 6 different whiskey barrels of your the high malt bourbon, which we'll talk about in a minute. Just want to announce some cool prizes that we're going to give away tonight, thanks to Mike, Greg, and the Old Elk team here. So as always, 2 prizes will be given away to our best 2 questions of the night. Mike will pick a question, Greg will pick a question, and then I will be the bad guy to choose who gets the first place prize and who gets the second place prize. But second place prize tonight, we have a different bottle of one of the Old Elk whiskeys from Old Elk's portfolio. And first place prize, we have an Otterbox backpack cooler, a branded Old Elk Otterbox backpack cooler with 2 bottles of whiskey inside. So some cool swag to give away, some cool whiskey to give away. So we're excited about that. But Mike, I'd love for you to kind of give some history about Old Elk, where the brand started, when you joined, what the passion was behind the project and kind of the vision. And then we'll let Greg to kind of chime in when he joined and all that fun stuff.
Yep. I'll start from where I came into the business, but Greg, I know you were very much a part of it before I was, but just history on the family. So I started in, November of 2017. The parent company and the gentleman that started the vision for Old Elk is Kurt Richardson. If you're not familiar with that name, he's a serial entrepreneur, and he's the gentleman that started Otterbox, which is the cell phone cover brand, if you're familiar with that. We also own the brand LifeProof, which is another cell phone cover brand. But Otterbox is a brand represents about 2/3 market share of all cell phone accessories globally. So really strong in technology. They have a few other businesses in interior design, a private charter boat and yacht club, and a few other things. But really, the crux of what they did was technology. And Greg, when you first met Kurt, what year was that? Was that 2010?
2010, yeah.
So 2010. And then from there, when actually, I want to kind of pass it over to you, Greg, because that was well before I was here. Was that 2012 that you first started making whiskey?
In about that area. So yeah. So like Mike said, Kurt and Nancy, his wife, are both very entrepreneurial people. And after they were incredibly successful with Otterbox, their passion is to start and build small companies from the ground up and make them successful. So in 2010, he elected or was interested in getting into the bourbon business. And the first thing he did was really look me up and approach me while I was still master distiller in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And, we talked about a lot of things, but more than anything, Kurt was interested really in two things, and it's really the elevator pitch for Old Elk and Old Elk's DNA. He wanted first and foremost to bring world-class quality products to the table. And secondly, he wanted to bring products to the table that were different than everybody else. And as a result of those two principles, he asked me to create custom mash bills for Old Elk rather than the staple 4 or 5 mash bills that I was producing for many other folks under many different brands over a long period of years. So that's really how it started in 2010. The first mash bill that they asked me to produce was Old Elk Flagship Bourbon. And he gave me 2 words to work with. He said, we would like that product to be smooth and easy. And that was it. So at that point, I was probably 36 years into my career and really had never had an opportunity to build custom mash bills from the ground up. So it was a first for me, and it was incredibly exciting. And from there, I just really leveraged my experience. I knew to get smooth and easy that I had to get the malted barley content way up in the mash bill. Also, in the back of my mind, I knew that all the other mash bills that I produced in my career always had some degree of rye in it for a really nice spice characteristic. And again, through experience, I knew that it takes a minimum of 15% rye in a mash bill to get that character to carry over into the distillate. So really, after that, it became reverse math. I took corn content down to the minimum, 51% for a bourbon. Factored in 15% rye to get the nice spice note, and that left me room for 34% malted barley. So that took me probably,
And was that something you had ever done before, Greg? Because I'm curious on the 51% corn. Obviously, that, like you said, that's the minimum for a bourbon. To be honest with you, if I've seen that before, I'm not remembering. But like, was that something you had done before? Or was this a completely new thing? Because, like I said, 51%. That's the minimum content. That's pretty rare for a bourbon to only
yes.
get minimum content.
No, that
Sorry
was
to interrupt you. I was just curious.
Not at all. No, that was a totally brand new concept. And the reason I did that is because I was trying to maximize the space for a high degree of malted barley. All of the other bourbon mash bills that I produced for many folks were probably 65 to 70% corn. And we had a 21% rye bourbon mash bill and a 36% rye mash bill. So no, 51% corn was an absolute first at that distillery, really, and an absolute first for me personally. So yeah, it was fun, and when I finally produced the white distillate, it came out incredibly good. the quality of it was spectacular. I wasn't my training is really based on evaluating white distillates more so than finished distillate or finished whiskeys after they've aged. And the training that I received from Seagram's was really all about looking for quality defects in a white distillate to make sure that they were worthy of going into a barrel. So, after I produced the Old Elk flagship bourbon mash bill for the first time, it was free of all quality defects based on my training. And I knew that, world-class whiskey going into a barrel is going to become a better world-class whiskey when it comes out of the barrel. But I really wasn't in a position to, try to say what the flavor characteristics necessarily were going to be. But I knew that good in equals good out through my training and throughout my career.
Did you have any hesitations or were you skeptical at all? I mean, if it wasn't something you had done before, did you go in and knowing that you were pretty confident? I mean, with your experience, obviously, I know you knew what you were doing, but anytime you do something you haven't done before, I'm sure there's some nervousness about how it's going to turn out. I mean, was there any of that there, or was it pretty confident the whole time?
No, there really wasn't, and really it's because throughout my career and primarily with Seagram's that we produced a multitude of different mash bills that were built really for Seagram brands. So I mean, we had batch light whiskey mash bills, we had spirit mash bills, and we had 4 or 5 different bourbon mash bills as well as rye whiskey mash bills. So I had a high degree of experience with all the different grains, with the exception of wheat. Up till Old Elk, we can talk about this in a little bit. I had never produced any mash bills that had a wheat content in them. But in any case, I had experience with high degrees of rye in mash bills. We had some higher malt mash bills, bourbon mash bills, but nowhere close to the 34%. But in any case, I knew the characteristics of those grains. I knew, I had I would say a very good understanding of how they would ferment. And as such, I had a high degree of confidence that those mash bills were going to work out well. The interesting part is that because we had never done a mash bill at 34% malt, I actually had to do some pretty significant equipment changes to be able to get that much malt into our cookers. I actually had to use 2 cooking systems and transfer malt from one to the other to be able to get all the malt ground through a particular hammer mill. So it really took me probably 6 months after we decided on the Old Elk bourbon mash bill before I could produce it to give me time to make the equipment changes that I needed to do to even do it. So,
So you were still at MGP during this time, yeah?
Yes. So we were when I met Old Elk, we were just transitioning from LDI to MGP, and then probably everything that I produced ultimately would have been under the MGP umbrella. But so I probably started producing their products 2012, I think. And then
were they buying their when Old Elk first started buying whiskey from MGP? Was it to full age statement, or were they buying it as a white distillate, or were they buying it at a certain age and then finishing off aging after that, or how exactly?
No, they were buying all brand new distillate, and it was all Old Elk custom mash bills. So everything that I produced for Old Elk were, with the exception of the 95% rye mash bill, were mash bills that I crafted specifically for Old Elk and then produced them specifically for Old Elk. We put in the neighborhood of 12,000 barrels down, and then pretty much everybody went back to their regular jobs for 4 years until the product came of age to the point where we could start looking at harvesting and launching the brand. So we launched the brand proper November of 2017. So we are just soon to be only 5 years in market coming this November. So sometimes I have to pinch myself because it's like, it seems like we've been doing it longer than that, but we are very new to the market relative to, other folks that are our size. And it's pretty amazing.
We launched 32 states in about a 14-month period. So Craig was not home for about a year and a half.
We were road warriors for two solid years. It was something, yeah. But it was necessary. So yeah, we laid all the infrastructure. We're distributed in all 50 states, and now the focus is still building the brand, building case volume. But now that we've got the foundation in all 50 states, now we're looking at building on points of distribution in all those states. So still a lot of work to do, but things, our growth has been spectacular, and our job is to continue that spectacular growth.
Awesome. Obviously, I have quite a few more questions here for you, and we're going to get into some tasting.
Yeah.
I just want to do a quick reminder to those watching live on Facebook or YouTube. If you are a member and you do want to ask a question, feel free to just put it in the comment section, and we will see it here. If you are asking a question from an account that the name is different than your Whiskey Club account name, just make sure you put the name that's on your Whiskey Club in your comment. So we will ask the question, because we won't ask your question if you're not a member. Talking about mash bills, obviously the first mash bill with a 51% corn, the high malt, the rye. Well, I guess before I ask that question, I'm sorry. Is Old Elk still having MGP still make all their distillate, or have you guys transitioned to making your own distillate in your own facilities?
Well, for the most part, we're still what's going into the bottle now is all the product that I produced.
Oh wow! How many
4
barrels did that? How many? I mean, how much?
4 to 9
buy?
years ago. Well, I put down. I think. Well, I put down about 14,000 barrels in total. But as of the beginning of this year, because of our growth and whatnot, we were forecasting some gaps in inventory 5 and 6 years down the road. So we have put down, I think, like 3,000 more barrels at the beginning of this year at MGP, but it was still under my supervision. So I wasn't in the plant watching every step of the way like I did the first 14,000 barrels. But I still dictate the terms of how it's processed, how it's produced, and I still get white distillate samples that I have to approve before we take ownership of that product. So, it's not identical to what I did for the first 14,000, but it's pretty dang close. And I keep tabs on all the quality aspects of that new production, and it has to be produced the way I produced it.
And where's that new production being done?
Well, that's at MGP down in Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah, same distillery. I wasn't in the plant every day to supervise every step of it, but I still have a pretty global overview of what's going on there.
And is there any plans on the road to start producing your own distillate, or is I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, the juice is good, so if it's not broke, don't fix it. But
no, I think Old Elk's business plan from the get-go has always been build the brand first, and then we'll build the distillery. And we've got 2 or 3 distillery designs on paper. We've got some equipment bought actually, but we still feel like we've got probably a couple years work to go to really get the brand at the case volumes that our original business plan was calling for. So our focus currently, and probably for the next couple of years, is still to continue that really nice growth as well as increasing case volumes. But certainly, there are plans in the future to build a full-scale distillery at some point, and that would be in Fort Collins, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
So did anybody else after what's the polite way of saying it? After Old Elk recruited you to come over to work for them, did other distilleries do similar things and start picking off MGP distillers?
No, they frankly speaking, they didn't really have anybody to replace me. It was so yeah. I can't really speak for anything that's happened down there relative to personnel and position changes since I left in June of 2016. But when I did leave, that there was really nobody prepared to move into my position. So not quite sure what they did there.
I mean, this could be a good question for both you guys, Mike, as well. Like, what do you think has been the hardest part about building the brand over these past, don't say COVID either, but that COVID may have been good for you guys. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, yeah.
But like, what's been the biggest challenge of building a whiskey brand? And you guys have stood out amongst a lot of new brands that hit the market, and new whiskey brands are opening up every day. Like, what's been the hardest thing, do you think, over the past 5-6 years?
I mean, for me, just being new is always the challenge, and when you're in a sea with the American whiskey boom and there's a sea of new brands all coming out at the same time and everyone's, trying to tell their special story, you got to have a really good one to stand out. It's funny when you said COVID, because it, for us, from a positive perspective, was one of actually helped the brand, because there was a lot more of this and a lot of virtual opportunities for Greg to get a scope of people, not just the distributors across the United States, but also directly to the consumers. So the emerging whiskey clubs like Eureka, and then some of the guys on Instagram have really become brand advocates for us. And I'd say, probably right after July of 2020 is when it really started to turn for us. What
That's
about
awesome. You? Fred Minnick's of the world, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like I call it like the micro influencer. It's the guy who's got, even a couple of thousand followers and is, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's him and his friends, he or her and his friends and their extended friend network. And they're pretty hardcore about talking and learning about whiskey, and they share the brand story that, Greg's given to them or myself or someone in Old Elk, and they are regularly talking about what we're doing, and it kind of starts to spread and snowball like wildfire. What about you, Greg? What do you think
Well, I think really for me, I think, we've known all along that the quality of our products is as good or better than anybody's out there. And, our challenge being new to the market with, many new brands coming onto the scene every day, like you said, is just getting people to taste it. Our products don't really need a sales pitch. If we can get people to try them, overall it's a very positive outcome. And, I think the social platform has really been our strength. And, it was probably born of COVID, but it's going to stick around for a long time. And the other big thing, I think, is the fact that, clubs like yourself and many, many other clubs that are out there are just groups of really passionate and knowledgeable people about the business, wanting to get more knowledge about the business. And I think Old Elk Company has really captured a piece of that platform, and I think it's done very well for us. And I think Old Elk does a very good job at reaching out and touching those people. So yeah, I think anytime you're new, it's a struggle to get your name out there.
I wanted to call something out. So you had said what was the founder's name again? I'm so sorry.
Kurt.
When Kurt reached out to you, he said he wanted it to be smooth and easy, right?
Yes.
Smooth and easy. So we have kind of an ongoing joke on these calls that I don't think smooth is a good tasting note.
Yeah, everybody hates that word.
So I didn't even know this before we did it. That story about Kurt and smooth and easy. But we put these stickers on the back of these bottles this month, and it's an elk member. It says Old Elk, and then underneath it says "Never Not Smooth."
There you go.
So that was before I knew the story. So I thought that was kind of a funny coincidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I understand smooth and easy. I get it. You want it to be unobtrusive. Is I guess another way of saying it. But I did, leading up to the call, Greg, I did kind of do some research, and I watched a couple interviews that you've done previously. And one thing I found extremely interesting was these blue Bibles.
Oh yeah.
That you show, and I was hoping maybe you could talk about that a little bit. And I'm hopeful you have them in with arm's reach, because I thought they were super interesting.
Yeah, just bear with me. 1 second.
Mike, do you know what these are? Have you seen these?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
So this is why I say Seagram's gave me the best training in the world. So these two books, they're incredibly technical textbooks on every aspect of the whiskey business. One book is specific to beverage alcohol production, so that's all.
What a riveting title.
This is all mashing, fermentation, yeast propagation, and I think
manufactured by Seagram's, correct?
Maturation. And then this
manual, right?
The other blue Bible is specific to all distillation practices related to whiskey and Nutri-Grain spirits and gin and batch light whiskey and whatever. But what these two books represent is about 50 years of research and development from probably one of the most progressive research and development departments in the industry in the world over a 40 or 50 year period. And they had a panel of probably 8 to 10 PhD scientists that investigated every aspect of the process. And what these two Bibles represent is all the methods that they learned to make the best world-class, highest quality whiskeys in the world. And these are all the methods that I was trained on during the 24-year period that I trained under the Seagram umbrella. So these are...
Those are not published, right? Those are private, right?
They are...
Are they for sale, Greg?
they were never published. They were just... specifically, they were just Seagram textbooks that
I'm sure you can find them on WikiLeaks somewhere or somewhere on the dark web.
You might. I mean, there's just a wealth of knowledge in both those books, and it represents really all the methods that I was trained on by the master distiller that trained me, and it was all the information that was passed down from one master distiller to another. And it's not to say we didn't continue to learn new things along the way. But certainly this is the absolute foundation of making the best quality whiskeys in the world. And, I was very fortunate to have been part of their program.
So I want to get into tasting this whiskey, but before we do that, I do, Greg, if you can just maybe touch on it for a few minutes, just the other mash bills that you've developed with Old Elk and kind of what makes those special as well. And then we'll get into tasting the barrel pick here, and we'll make a cocktail, and then we'll go to some Q&A from the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, after I produced the Old Elk flagship bourbon mash bill, probably a year or so after we had that in the warehouse and starting the aging process, Kurt and I met again, and at that point, Kurt was asking, what did I think would be the next up and coming categories in the whiskey arena 6-7 years down the road, which as it is where we're at today. So when we had that discussion 7 years ago, I told him that wheat bourbon and wheat whiskeys obviously had some nice players in those categories, but there weren't very many of them, and those categories were largely untapped. At the time we had those conversations, 95% rye mash bill that we were making famous in Lawrenceburg was gaining traction like crazy. And I think, we had a lot to do with, popularizing rye whiskey because of that mash bill. But so as we talked, I told him I thought we should develop a wheat bourbon mash bill as well as a wheat whiskey mash bill. But again, to stay true to Old Elk's DNA, to be different than everybody else that was on the shelf already, I told him I thought we should go to the extreme, and that's exactly what we did. So the wheat whiskey mash bill, we did a 95% wheat, 5% malt, nothing anywhere close to that on the shelf in the wheat whiskey category. And we really took the same approach with wheat bourbon. I took the corn content to the minimum, or the wheat content. Let me get that straight. It was
51 corn.
Yeah, wheat bourbon. It was 51. Yeah, confusing myself. So I took the corn to the minimum, 51%. But I took the wheat content all the way up to 45%. And that left me room for 4% malt to get things converted. So again, way higher in wheat content than any other wheat bourbon on the shelf. And so we subsequently produced 4,000 barrels of that product. And actually, we have some of the wheat whiskey be turning 9 years old this year. So those products with additional age are going to be amazing. The 9-year-old, I'm really looking forward to tapping into some of those and see what they look like now. But
maybe some of those special barrels we talked about before the call there, Mike.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely looking forward to checking those out. And then because our mash bills are so extreme, we actually started a Master Series blend on limited production runs every year, limited release, I guess. So we've got a 4-grain and we've got a double wheat Master Series blend. And because our mash bills are extreme, I was able to blend and create mash bills within mash bills with those two particular brands. And we started Infinity Blend Series at the beginning of this year. I was telling Mike before we joined the call that just yesterday, Mel, our head production person and distiller out in Fort Collins, came to the house yesterday, and we formulated 5 different blends. That one of those 5 will become the 2022 Infinity Blend, and I expect that by the end of next week we'll have arrived at what that one's going to be, and that'll be hitting the shelf probably late October, early November. So anyway, look forward to that. And we also have our dabbling in the cash finish series. We've got Armagnac, Cognac, Tawny Port, Oloroso Sherry, cash finish in limited editions. And we also have a rum finished rye coming out. That's I can tell you true that is spectacular. I had some of that just a couple of weeks ago at a couple events, and it's incredibly well received. So yeah, we've got a lot of neat stuff going on. But our core categories are still the 3 custom mash bills that I produced, as well as a 95% rye mash bill that is not custom, but it's always been one of my favorite to produce because from a technical perspective, it's incredibly hard to make and have the quality come out. And again, that's a mash bill we made famous throughout most of my career at the Lawrenceburg distillery. From it started before 1978 when I joined them, but we certainly made that famous all the way up to 2016 when I left.
So I'm just going ahead. I'm making this cocktail here. So this is just a bourbon margarita. Figured it would be good cocktail for the nice warm weather we're getting here. So we'll make this cocktail. We'll have that on the side, and then we'll talk about this whiskey. Now, I'm not sure you remember, Greg or Mike, but do you know anything about the barrels that were selected here for this blend? And we were coming in here at 109.4 proof. Do you remember what perchance like the high end of the whiskey that was blended in proof wise and the low end?
I don't have the specific barrel by barrel proofs at my disposal right now, but I can tell you that every barrel that goes into a bottle is I do organoleptic and Century on every barrel before I harvest, or before I have it moved to Fort Collins for harvest. The Old Elk flagship bourbon, the entry proof is always 115 proof. For the most part, we use Independent Stave or Speyside. They're two of the best coopers in the business. And I've always stuck to the traditional char levels, number 4 on the side, number 2 on the heads. And the proof of as they mature in Lawrenceburg, the barrels, for the most part, tend to lose proof over the maturation period. So usually what we see coming out of the barrel that was entered at 115 is coming out anywhere from probably 105 to maybe 112-ish. So you probably, your barrels probably were a mix of anything in between that 105 and 112, I would expect.
Yep. Highest barrel,
so it might be a little loud. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I got it. The highest one, there was 100.
Sorry.
I like doing these calls just because you got to go back to your bar days, right, Trevor?
Yeah.
It's going to be your swan song one day. So the highest barrel we had was 114.1, and the lowest was 104.6 between it's like 7 barrels we blended.
Cool. Sorry, I'm just looking for my stuff here. So
I will say, generally speaking, when I select the barrels for the barrel program, and as a rule of thumb, the 3rd and 4th floors of the Lawrenceburg warehouses are usually the sweet spots, and maybe the 6th floor in some cases. So I would say with a high degree of confidence that probably all of the barrels are coming from 3rd floor, 4th floor, or in some cases the 6th floor of the various brick warehouses that they have in Lawrenceburg.
Awesome. So I have my cocktail here. Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to make that. I'm going to pour a little splash of the barrel pick on the side just so I can enjoy both. I will be honest with everybody. Usually I get a chance to taste these, the picks ahead of time. In this particular case, I did not get a chance to taste the blend. So tonight's actually the first time I'm tasting it. So the tasting notes we have here provided on your cards this month were done by Greg himself. So thank you, Greg, for those. As always, we highly encourage drinking the whiskey along with us. And if you have any tasting notes, please put them in the comments, because like we always say, it's you may not smell something, you may not taste something, and the moment someone says it, you're like, yes, that's what I was thinking. So I know you have coconut here in your taste profile, but actually you get a decent amount of coconut on the nose, as well as that vanilla and clove aspect. But for some reason, that coconut is just kind of popping for me off the bat. When I was tasting it earlier, I poured a little, I let it sit and kind of developed as it sat out. And I got a nice candied orange mid palate with that coconut a little bit at the end. And then I get more of that oaky characteristics towards the finish. It's the finish is quite long, but is very nice, and one would say smooth.
Yeah, good man.
I know.
You passed.
No, but just overall, it's a phenomenal micro blend here, and I hope our members are enjoying it as much as I am. I'm seeing a lot of positive comments in the comment section here, and have had many people reach out to me directly saying how much they've enjoyed it. So, cheers to both you gentlemen. Thank you, and we will start diving into some Q&A here from our audience.
I need to make a quick comment real quick on the sticker. You guys call it stickers, right? So our first partnership as a brand, which was about 6 months after launch, was with the Elks Lodges of America. And we did a specific bottling for them, and we had it was the 150th anniversary of the Elks Lodge, which I learned quite a bit about the organization, about its heyday in the 50s and 60s, and then it had its kind of.
Are you going to get some hate mail then if they see this? Or
No. We actually had like a custom topper for the Elks Lodge. I went to the event with Greg in San Antonio and did a whole thing about it. So it's like this whole thing coming full circle. It puts a huge smile on my face to see the fact that you did an homage to the Elks.
So when we were, and just to kind of piggyback on top of the sticker, this is the first time we've kind of done one of these stickers before, and I've been pushing for a while. And we were throwing around ideas for the sticker, and we were going between this and some type of like Joe Rogan themed, like elk hunting sticker. But I'm really happy with the final product that we landed on this one.
This is the first time it's been stickered.
This is the first time we've done a sticker. Yes.
All right. And feedback was excellent, right? Everyone's
everyone loved it. That's funny. That's really cool. So I hope everyone got the sticker on their bottle as well. So we'll just dive into some questions here. Greg, Mike, don't worry about keeping track of them. I'll keep track of the questions, and we'll run through them really quickly at the end.
Sure.
Emmanuel Martinez asks, as distilleries move into more experimental releases, is there a type of barrel or something that you're looking to experiment with?
Well, we're always Old Elk is always going to be progressive, and we just launched our cask finish series probably not that much over a year ago, and so we dove right into port, sherry, Armagnac, and cognac. Probably 8 months later, we dove into rum finished rye whiskey barrels. I think we've got up to 50 of those currently aging. We've got some toast finish on the horizon. We've acquired barrels, and I believe we've got product aging in some toast finish barrels. I think we're always about staying focused with our core categories, but at the same time, we like to bring fun and exciting things to the table on limited editions, to pique the interest of our consumers. So I would say stay tuned and look forward to many good things coming down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Michael Osur wants to know, Greg, what was the biggest challenge in moving from such a large distillery or operation like MGP and then going to Old Elk? Is there anything that you felt you've learned going from a bigger operation to a smaller operation?
Yeah, I think probably for me, going from a highly commercial arena to a craft arena, probably one of the most difficult things, I guess, would be having all the best controls and instrumentation at your disposal. In Lawrenceburg, we always had the best of the best relative to instrumentation controls, all the computer processes that ran the equipment. And when you join the craft arena, that's entirely different. So you have to scaling down was I'm not going to say a challenge, but it was certainly the scale from one day to the other was certainly enormous, and adjusting to that was, I guess, a little bit uncomfortable at times. But relative to the the staple processes are all the same. It's just a matter of scale. So the cooking and the mashing, fermentation, and even the distillation, for that matter, is it all scales down quite well. But I would say probably the hardest thing for me was adjusting to less controls and less instrumentation than I was used to, and still having to produce the same quality product that I was used to. So that was certainly an adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
John Bang wants to know, do you have any input on yeast strains and the different qualities they impart on the whiskey?
Oh yeah, certainly. So, they're all proprietary. Sadly, I really can't talk in depth about them, but, yeast strain is outside of fermentation is probably one of the biggest contributors to the flavor profile that you're going to have at the end of your run. So, we have chosen specific yeast because of the flavor profiles that they develop, and we because we want our products to be consistent, we stick with what we started with. So all of our custom mash bills have specific yeast that we started with, and we continue to use that same specific yeast to make sure that our products at the end of the day stay consistent.
Mike, I'm sorry. Most of these questions are for Greg. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm here for moral support anyways.
Greg, Clark White wants to know, going into your 45th year in the whiskey industry, can you share a memory or experience that has stood out to you from over the years?
Oh, boy. There's a lot of them. But
I was going to say, hard to narrow it down.
Actually,
it's a good question.
It's a great question. But actually, I did a podcast last night, and I was asked sort of a similar question. They said,
So you've had practice.
Well, not practice. It was really the first time ever anybody's asked me, what were some of my failures? And because, on the shows, we always talk about, how well everything went. But we had some incredible, I wouldn't say failures, but we had some incredible incidents over the years well, just one of them was the one I told last night, actually. So in Lawrenceburg, we had like an 80,000 bushel corn bin that transferred corn about a quarter mile or half mile from the outside bin to the inside bins in our cooker building. And the cooker building was 7 stories tall, 140 feet high, and then everything went from the bins through gravity all the way through the process. But anyway, it was automatic transfer system. So it was a big blower that would blow corn from the big silo to the inside bins. And corn, if you don't know it, is an incredibly abrasive material to convey. And as it was, late one night, unbeknownst to anybody, an elbow in that automatic transfer system inside the 6th floor of the cooker building wore out. Because the bins never filled up, they never shut off. And we continued to convey corn at about 3,000 bushels an hour all night long. And it got so high in that 6th floor room that it burst the windows.
Oh my God.
Cascaded down 140 feet to an overhead canopy that covered the rail cars where we unloaded grain, and nearly caved that in. But
can you imagine being the person that came in the next day and
Yeah.
I was
or was that you?
And I'm thinking, how am I going to explain this one to the boss?
Do you have a picture of that, Greg?
I do not. No.
That would be awesome. I've not heard that story. That's amazing.
And then another really quick one, foaming was always an issue with the high rye or even we did some 100% barley malt mash bills from time to time, but foaming was explosive at times. And we had a open top fermenter that looked like a volcano for about 3 hours, just blowing foam everywhere. And by the time we got it transferred or split between other fermenters, I mean, half the fermenter was foam and it was all over the freaking building. I've got a video of it. If I can get it off my old phone and it still works, I'll send it to you guys. It's pretty amazing when you see something like that happening. There's nothing you can do to stop it, short of make more space for it. But anyway, so there's a multitude of stories like that for sure.
It's always the stories that in the moment they're terrible.
Yeah.
Looking back, they're the best, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's all part of the learning experience. That's for darn sure. Great question, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Archer wants to know, Greg, how difficult was it moving from using Indiana water in the mash to Colorado, and how do you feel it affects the overall finished product? Well, you're still using MGP products, right?
Well, we use Colorado mountain water out in Fort Collins. So once we harvest the barrels, all our blending and all our bottling.
Proofing down. Yeah, that's right.
Proofing down. So actually, both water sources are incredibly good. The reason Lawrenceburg Distillery was located where it's at is it sits on top of an underground aquifer. It's all limestone filtered water, super clean, no iron, no sulfur. And it stays 56 degrees year round. It's like a free source of chilled water. In that distillery, we used 7 million gallons a day out of that aquifer. So fast forward Fort Collins, Colorado, you've got coal, Rocky Mountain, really snow melt, if you will. Again, very clean, no sulfur, no iron, and probably less hardness than we actually had in Lawrenceburg. So from that aspect, the quality of the water is very similar, and as such doesn't really change or influence the process or the distillate quality.
Well, what's better, Greg? Who has the better water? We need an answer.
I'd say they're equal.
Come on.
No, they are both incredibly good sources of water. That's why you've got all the breweries out in Fort Collins. You've got Coors Light, Coors, and Golden. That's all because of the water source, and that's always the first key element, is choosing a good location for water if you're going to make a high quality product.
It's safe to play Switzerland, Greg. I get it.
Yeah.
He has practice at this one, right?
Yeah. I used to wrestle. No.
Let me see here. So Michael Holstead asked, what kind of age do you target / will you target going forward for Infinity blends, and what profile are you going for in these blends?
Well, another good question. So the age that I dictate, if you will, really has to do with the mash bill. And I think really early on in the show, I had mentioned that up till creating the Old Elk wheated bourbon and wheat whiskey mash bills, I had never had any experience with wheat in a mash bill. And what I have found is really several things. When I produced those barrels of both those mash bills, I had in my mind that they'd be ready at 4 years old, just like the bourbon was. And we actually had started building our business plan around that. So when I took them out of the barrel at 4 years old, neither one of the wheat bourbon or the wheat whiskey was ready. And it's because we have such a high wheat content in both those mash bills, in a low corn content or a no corn content. You don't have corn, the robust characteristics of corn, overshadowing the flavors that wheat brings to the table. And so the wheat brings lighter, milder flavor profiles to the table. And I found that they actually needed more barrel note or more maturity notes to really to carry them and bring them up to the level of quality that we expect out of Old Elk product. So I waited another year, looked at both mash bills at 5 years old. The wheat bourbon was ready at 5, and the wheat whiskey was still not ready. Wheat whiskey wasn't ready until it was 6 years old. So Old Elk flagship bourbon is ready at 4. The sweet spot, I think, for Old Elk bourbon and where it's matured is 4 to 8 years old. Old Elk wheat bourbon is a minimum of 5, but I think the sweet spot on that's going to be 5 to 10. And Old Elk wheat whiskey, I think, is a minimum of 6. And I think that sweet spot's going to be like 6 to 12 years old. So look forward to really all those mash bills improving as they acquire some more age over the next few years. And we've already talked about, some 9-year-old wheat whiskey that's looks like it's going to come available. So
I wrote it down and I circled it about 5 times.
I'm really looking.
I got it.
Really looking forward to seeing what that looks like. So yeah, it's So that it depends on the mash bill, but we like a lot of maturity notes in the Old Elk products.
Scott Kurkowski asks, a lot of distilleries when they're starting out, they'll lay down whiskey and, for the first few years will produce vodka or gin. Why did Old Elk think about doing that, and why didn't they end up doing it?
Well, we actually started down that path, truthfully. So we had Drytown Gin, which is actually a very nice gin, a 10 botanical gin, and we had Drytown vodka that was produced at our craft distillery in Fort Collins. And when we launched Old Elk flagship bourbon 5 years ago, we launched it with Drytown Gin and Drytown vodka. But we soon learned that distributors, the last thing they wanted to see was another gin and another vodka. So we killed the Drytown vodka project entirely, very quickly, and Drytown Gin is pretty much on a limited basis now. We still distribute some of it in small amounts in various places, but so we quickly left that business plan, and then really because of our ownership and the financial backing that we had from Kurt and Nancy, they gave us the latitude of waiting till our brown goods were 4 years old minimum, so that we could bring them to market when they were ready and not before they were ready.
Awesome. Donald Serraro, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name. I'm here. Donald Serraro. Any planned collabs with the plethora of breweries that are in Fort Collins?
Well, actually, we've done several already. A couple of years ago, we did was it Bullproof? It was
Odell. That was Odell Brewery.
Yeah,
which is right there in Fort Collins.
And
Nice.
and we've done other collaborations with some of the other breweries out there. So it's not on a large scale, but we certainly one thing about the whiskey industry and brewing for that matter is that I think it's really unique relative to other businesses. It's as much as your competitors, it's also a family, and I think everybody sort of has the mindset that there's room for everybody. And I think a lot of folks willingly do collaborations like you're talking about. And, Old Elk has certainly been part of some of that in the Fort Collins area for sure. So, yeah, absolutely.
All right. There's 3 more questions I want to get to because I think they're all good questions. So we only have a few more minutes here and we need to pick 2 winners. So maybe some rapid fire answers here. Just a quick couple sentences if you don't mind.
Sure.
Micah, it's Ziana. Sorry again. Would you attribute your success of your brand more to refining your mash bill recipes or your barrel aging process?
I'd say all the above. I think really, again, I think it's all about quality first and foremost. If and regardless of what business you're in, if you bring quality to the table, you have a high degree of success. And then the fact that our mash bills are different than everybody else's, I think, is very attractive, especially to the new bourbon enthusiasts that are out there.
Awesome. Tom Burns wants to know, how much do Colorado winters affect time/process in the barrel aging process?
It's not the winters as much. Fort Collins is actually quite moderate, but you do have a higher altitude. I think Fort Collins is roughly 5,000 feet, and it's a very arid climate, as opposed to very seasonal climates in Lawrenceburg, where most of the barrels are still aging, as well as a lot of humidity and so forth. But relative to the flavor profile, the only thing, it doesn't really affect the flavor profile, but it does affect the angel share losses. And when we build a full-scale warehouse with the full-scale distillery, those warehouses will have some type of humidity control in them to slow those angel share losses down. They're considerably higher in Fort Collins than they are in Lawrenceburg or Kentucky areas.
I think this is a good question for the last question here. Jonathan Kane wants to know, with Colorado whiskey booming, are the myriad of distilleries there working together in the grand whiskey traditions of Kentucky and Indiana whiskey families?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't know that they've achieved that level of success like Kentucky has. And again, Kentucky has been at it for a long, long time and has done a very good job about protecting the Kentucky backyard. So, I think certainly there's an intention to be part of the Colorado family. I think everybody supports everybody in Colorado, but I don't think they've achieved anywhere the level of success that the Kentucky groups have achieved over the last 10 or 15 years. But
yeah,
I think it's certainly possible, but they're far behind.
There's no consortium of Colorado distilleries supporting Colorado distilleries like Washington wineries supporting Washington winemaking yet, but hopefully that's in the works in the near future.
Well, I think you guys are the second Colorado distillery that we've done a pick with since the inception of the club, and the first was Laws. So we look forward to seeing other great Colorado distilleries, pop up, and hopefully we can work with them so we can help grow the Colorado whiskey making family. But all right, we are going to choose our top two questions. So Mike, you'll choose one, and Greg, you'll choose one. I'll just run through them here really quick. So Manuel Martinez asked about experimental releases and the type of barrel that you'd want to experiment with. John Bang asked about the yeast strains and the qualities they impart. Michael Asur asked about moving from such a large operation to a smaller operation. Clark White asked the question about memorable experiences in your 45 years of the whiskey industry. Matt Archer asked about the difficulty of moving or using Indiana water in the mash to Colorado water, and how did that affect the overall finished product. Michael Hustad asked, what kind of age do you target for the Infinity blends and just barrels in general. Scott Kirkowski asked about starting with vodka and gin, and what that process looked like. Donald Sorreo asked the plans with any collabs with some breweries. Which, on that note, just really quick, we will be doing something fun with the brewery with our barrels that we got from Old Elk. So keep an eye out for that. Micah Itzana asked, about attributing your success to the mash bills or the barrel aging process. Tom Burns asked the question about Colorado winters, and Jonathan Kane asked the question about the whiskey industry in Colorado and establishing a group of families like Kentucky or Indiana. So, Mike, I will let you choose first. Your favorite question.
Well, all right. If it's not your favorite question, Greg, I just like them about your 45-year history. So that was Clark's question. But was that what you were going to choose?
The memorable experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, choose a different one then, because that's
No, I've got another one.
Okay, all right.
Perfectly fine. And I thought it was a great question because up until last night, that type of question over the last 2.5 years that I've been doing these shows has really never been asked. So I think it was fun. It was a great question and a different twist. So all good. The next one I thought that was sort of different. It really hasn't been asked that much over the 2.5 years. Again, is how hard was it to go from a commercial arena to the craft arena? And from the standpoint of new questions with a new dynamic, I was really impressed with that question and happy to answer it the best I could.
Is that Michael Osur's question?
Yeah, that's Michael Osur. Yeah, and then Clark White. I got to go with what produced my favorite answers, and that was the question about Greg's 45 years in the industry, and those two stories I were told were pretty awesome. So Clark White, we got you for the Otterbox backpack, the Old Elk Otterbox backpack, and the bottles of whiskey, and then Michael Osur will be getting you a bottle of one of the flagship brands of Old Elk as well. So Mike Reed, Greg Metz, thank you very much.
Question real quick, Trevor.
Absolutely.
Some specific questions on here about people asking about availability of product in market, and even like teaming up with like a local museum contact that they have. How can I reach out to some of these people or share my email, or what's the best way if anyone has a specific question that I can follow up with them?
If you want to share your email here, you're more than welcome to, or it's up to you.
Yeah, do you want me to put it? I'm just verbally read it aloud, or do you want me,
sure. If that's okay with you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just go. So it's just Mike, MIKE .reed REID at oldelk.com. Mike.reed REID at oldelk.com. Thank you. And it looks like somebody put it in there for me. But yes, please email me and I can get you any of this information. Thank you for that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Trevor. I just want to make sure.
No, you're good. Taylor, who is our behind the scenes person, she's awesome. She's the one that helps with all the questions. She put that in the chat for everyone. So thank you, Taylor. I appreciate it. But gentlemen, just wanted to say thank you. Really enjoyed the conversation this evening and getting to know you guys both a little better, getting to know Old Elk a little bit better. We're super proud to have you guys as part of the club, and have a good evening. And our members, we'll see you next month. Cheers.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate the support.